As per the agenda, the next session is with Mr. Sameer Ratolikar, Ciso of HDFC Bank, but an urgent meeting came up and he couldn't make it to the event. So in his place, we have Mr. Piyush Agarwal, AVP of Information Security at Genpact. He is going to be making a presentation on data protection and privacy. Mr. Agarwal has 13 years of experience leading the Genpact's privacy initiative. He holds a degree in BTech and MBA. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Piyush Agarwal.
All right, thanks. Lovely being back in Bombay. I've spent about 10 years of my life in the city. So it was a bit of a nostalgia when I came out of the airport, now in Delhi. So just a quick introduction. Piyush Agarwal have spent about 13 years in this sector, in the information security. A lot of it on the consulting side, now with Genpact. A lot of experience on the assurance side, now leading some of the privacy initiatives for Genpact. So what I wanted to talk to you about is a very interesting topic on data protection and privacy and how these two talk to each other. So Genpact has been known as a traditional BPO company and a company that works with clients in the business processing, outsourcing, and business processing management sector. But I think over the last few years, the company has grown. It has come far. It has come a long way in delivering some digital-led transformation services to its clients. We started our journey way back in 1997 as a captive of GE. In Gurgaon, but now almost 20 years down the line, we have over 800 clients. We serve them from over 25 countries. Our employee base has grown over 80,000. And digital and transformation is our focus. So the company has had multiple acquisitions in the digital space with a single aim of delivering digital-led transformation services to its clients. Our USP lies in the fact that we run thousands of complex processes for hundreds of clients in the Fortune 500, and along with that, using digital-led solutions, we now deliver what we call intelligent operations for our clients. Our teams have delivered solutions in multiple industries: aviation, retail, financial services, insurance. Very interesting one on pharmacovigilance, where our teams have used artificial intelligence and machine learning on large data sets to solve regulatory issues for clients in the life sciences and pharmaceutical sector. So I'm not going to go through all of them, just leaving it here. I wanted to talk to you quickly about two trends that I picked up recently. This is Microsoft CTO in his interview to Business Insider about a couple of weeks ago. One is the explosion of cheap, powerful microprocessors. So every device around us getting a microprocessor and getting an ability to solve complex problems using machine learning and artificial intelligence. The use cases are multiple. You can have driverless cars, you can have cashierless retail chains, you can have industrial robots. The use cases are multiple, which will drive a need for a change and innovation at the microprocessor architecture level, making everything around us get a chip inside them and be able to solve, use AI capabilities to solve problems. Imagine things around us as individuals, like cameras or toys, or even at an institutional level, things like industrial robots addressing problems. So, for example, a toy addressing a toy reacting to a kid's behavioral aspects, and changing its the way fundamentally it has been designed, or an industrial robot scaling up to address the needs of the factory, so to say, based on analytical algorithms. But the common thread amongst all of these is that there is a lot of data that is getting generated, and less of it is in individual possession. So as an individual, we probably, if we consider ourselves as data subjects, we are on the receiving side, and if we consider ourselves as organizations, we have a responsibility to ensure that we handle this data in a responsible manner. There's a trail of data getting generated as more and more devices get connected, more and more devices get the ability to talk to each other. What does it really mean for data protection and privacy? Conceptually, more and more countries are now moving towards enacting legislation on privacy and data protection. As of earlier this year, at least, more than 100 countries had something or the other written in their constitutions on privacy and data protection. it is enshrined in international human rights laws, but it may seem counterintuitive, but data protection doesn't necessarily mean keeping data private. What it really means is having an ability to determine who holds how much of information and how it is used. So comes a very critical question of how are privacy and data protection related. What is important to remember is that privacy cannot be achieved unless data is protected, and therefore technology has a big role to play. Just as an example, if somebody's personal data is stolen, the privacy is breached. The individual is put is put on harm's way, and there could be instances of identity theft and so on and so forth. But the opposite relationship isn't necessarily true. So, for example, when you swipe your credit card at a retail store, there are multiple players who are involved, and while all of the data that is involved in that transaction is protected, there's a lot that needs to be done as far as privacy is concerned. So what are organizations doing traditionally as far as privacy and data protection is concerned? Data protection has been considered as a broad-based information security function. So you will have the standard functions around perimeter security, threat monitoring. You will have aspects around malware protection, some things that we've been hearing since morning. Specifically on the data, companies would have probably implemented broad-based data classification tools, even DLP and things like that. On the privacy, again, most organizations would have probably just scratched the surface. You would have policies and procedures in place. There will be privacy notices on the website. The legal function would have appointed a DPO. There would be amendments in the contracts to ensure that the organizations are legally protected as far as vendors or even clients are concerned. Some organizations would have probably done things like privacy assessments and figuring out what kind of PII information do they have in their landscape. But that's probably what it is. But there's a lot more that can be done. For example, figuring out specific network controls, VLAN restrictions based on the kind of data exposure one has, or doing application security architecture based on the kind of data that the application handles. So the idea is basically to make sure that these two get integrated as early as possible. What happens if you don't? I think as members of large organizations, we all would agree that the stakes are extremely high. So therefore, it is not a question of if you want to do it, it is a question of when would you want to do it. The earlier, the better. If you just go on to that link on Wikipedia, it just lists about 122 breaches in the last 5 years alone, all of them big breaches. In the first half of 2018 only, there are about breaches that resulted in about 4.5 billion records being exposed. So what is the solution? We believe the solution is to integrate the two functions as early as possible. Give the ability to the data protection teams to make sure where they know where the data is and to protect it in the rightful manner. How do we do it? We are talking about, and this is something that we have taken steps in at Genpact to do. We are talking about a comprehensive data protection framework coming on the back of a data lifecycle, right from the stages of creation all the way to monitoring and response. So the idea is to make sure that our information security teams who own the tools and technologies are equipped and capable to ensure that they address the needs. They're able to customize the implementations and put appropriate controls. So for example, talk about at the creation stage, you could have a very robust data classification tool which will not be a standard broad-based saying is it confidential or is it classified and things like that, but it can be customized to the base on the needs of the business processes. It gives the ability to the teams to monitor the flow of the data as long as the data is in the network. You can have things like application security assessments, which will enable you to identify controls around encryption, minimization, pseudonymization, and all of the standard practices around privacy. Privacy by design results in the similar concepts. You'll have aspects around collaboration, for example. When the teams are sharing data with the parties outside of the organization, you need to have a very robust framework around how you manage your vendors. Not just from the legal side, but also ensure that you have information security controls placed, there are assessments done, and so on and so forth. And then you have the other standard technologies like DLP and an ability to respond to breaches as well as, under the law, for example, data subject requests that are coming up. How do we do it? The idea is to make sure that we have the right structure in place. the key thing here is to make sure that the responsibility and accountabilities are well understood. The data security team has a place on the table. They are responsible for making sure that the assets that they own, they address the privacy concern. So, for example, this is more of an illustration that we have given here. It's you have a governance and oversight at the top with the steering committee kind of a structure, and then you have the data privacy and protection office, which is the heart of all this concept. It works in tandem with the Ciso organization as well as the information security operations teams to make sure the processes and tools are customized. And then you have the legal function, which is more like the owners of the regulatory aspects. They will probably have an appointment as the DPOs. They will be the ears on the ground. They will probably be talking to the regulators, and then you have the larger functions like the risk and the compliance functions who will be responsible for implementing the controls on the grounds with the business operations, and then other functional representations from HR or from vendor governance and so on and so forth. So essentially, the message is very clear. The message for the security teams is, you're going to get involved anyways if there is a data breach, so why not get involved upfront? There are other advantages as well. Instead of being just technical owners of solutions on the information security side, you work very closely with the business, so the relationship improves over there. With the legal teams, the legal functions in large organizations has always been considered to be a silo. Again, if you get them on the table, there are newer things that are coming up. And all of this is much more seamless and cost effective. Therefore, giving the teams the ability to not just implement tools and technologies, but also make sure the controls and the processes that they're devising and implemented are talking to the business. So therefore, that's what I just wanted to share with you guys. Any questions or anything, we can probably take it offline or, yeah. Thank you.